So, welcome everyone to Wines with the live stream, or rather, a live stream that is a comparison between Poland and Tuscany, or Tuscany and Poland. Today, I'm here with Tomasz Steinmetz from Poland.
Hello, everyone.
Velo. And he works actually in wine tourism in southern Poland. So he will tell us more about now in the beginning about the wine scene and in Poland, and also the how wine tourism is developing. We will discuss a bit, as I said, a comparison between Tuscany and Poland. And for every one of you who has any questions, you can just write them in the comments below. We are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and we will also be live, I think, now on Instagram. So, welcome, Tomasz, and I will let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. So maybe Katarina has done a good job introducing me, but I'll make a short list of what I do. So day to day, I organize tours for vineyard interested tourists in Poland. I guide little tours of wine bars in Krakow. I organize small tours for companies, corporate tours to vineyards around Poland, to Zielona Góra, to Wrocław. And I spend a lot of time tasting Polish wine just for fun. So that's my main line of occupation.
Okay, so how come did you start with wine tours and to work in the wine industry in Poland?
It's quite a recent thing. I started in 2020, the pandemic year, when everything was shut down, and after a few months of a total lockdown, people started thinking about going on tour, but locally, rather than spending a wine holiday in Tuscany or France. They thought about discovering local things. And this is when I entered the scene with my little Velo Wino project. Velo Wino is the brand that I'm using, and where I engaged the market with small tours to vineyards just outside Krakow. Then we spread our activities as far as Wrocław and Zielona Góra and Sandomierz. And right now it's quite a well-prospering enterprise with regular corporate trips and regular visits from tourists from abroad. Right now I'm organizing a fascinating wine tour for a couple from America. So it's going better and better every year. 2020 the start, 2021 the development, and from then on, when everything was open again after the pandemic, we started getting more and more traffic.
Okay, so welcome, Jeff. Jeff is we are connected on LinkedIn, so he I think he's from the US. So I'm happy you're here. For sure, we need a glass of wine. I don't drink that much in this period because I have this problem here, but I'm happy that you're here to listen to us. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask them. So let's dive deep directly into the wine industry in Poland. So, Tomasz, could you tell us a bit about the winemaking in Poland and how it has developed in the last few years?
Oh yes, absolutely. So the name wine industry is quite too much for what we have in Poland. It's a little branch of economy that covers no more than 600 vineyards. So and all of them rather small, around 1 hectare in area in surface. So I wouldn't say it's an industry, but it's a thriving branch of economy that's growing every year. We're adding a few or several more vineyards every year, and the area covered by vineyards is growing in Poland. So 600 producers, around 700 hectares covered by vines. The biggest producer has around 42 hectares. Then the second biggest is around 30, while the third biggest is around 27. And the rest is far behind, with vineyards of a size 10 hectares, 5 hectares, and many of the 600 around 1 hectare and 2 hectares. The average size of a vineyard in Poland is 1.5 hectare. So I wouldn't say it's an industry. It's just a small enterprise, very much garage winemaking, I would call it.
Okay. So what are the main grapes? Is it still mostly hybrid grapes, or do you also have like normal Vitis vinifera grapes?
It's a long debate here, starting from the early onset of winemaking in the 21st century, when we grew mainly Vitis, when we grew mainly hybrid grapes. But then with the climate change, we discovered that Riesling, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir grow as well as any other hybrid grape, and sometimes can sustain frost better than the hybrids. So we're moving from hybrid grapes towards Vitis vinifera, and I would say give the industry some 20 years and we'll move from 70% hybrid to 70% vinifera. So it's this is the direction we're following. But
is the climate warm enough to? Well, you're in southern Poland, but is it warm enough to have?
We have a good enough average temperature. We have enough of sunny days during the season. The amplitudes are not as bad. So depending on the spot in Poland, you can get a decent exposition for your vines. It's not as difficult. Around Krakow, where I live, there is a Polish pole of heat. So this is exactly where many vineyards have been founded because of the high average temperatures. So it's not a problem. It's not a problem for hybrid vines, especially, but even for Vitis vinifera. We have marvelous producers in Dolny Śląsk, Lower Silesia, who struggle with frost this last year, but nevertheless they managed to do it to produce some really good wines. If we look at the map, Poland would have its wine growing area as a belt stretching from the northwest to the southeast, as a belt in the south, going from Szczecin through Zielona Góra, Wrocław, Silesia, Krakow to Rzeszów. This is how it would look like. This is also caused by the presence of river valleys. This is also caused by the continentality of the climate, because in this area where vines grow, the climate is the mildest and the amplitudes are not as killing. Plus the presence of the warming influence of the Baltic Sea causes the very far north of Poland to be as well suited for the grapes. So I would say there are even vineyards with who grow Cabernet Sauvignon in the east of Poland. So things like that happen in the wild east of Poland of winemaking.
Yeah, well, I mean, you are considerably more to the south. I mean, I was thinking about Sweden, where it's still, I mean, it's mainly only hybrid grapes because they don't really manage to. They tried in the mid 90s and early 2000s, several producers to grow also Vitis vinifera, but it didn't go very well, especially not with the red grapes. So now it's mainly hybrid grapes, but they moved forward in the last 2 decades, but still there's a long road ahead.
Yeah, if you look at the graph that's displayed right now, I guess you can easily decipher how much reds and how much whites are grown in various voivodeships of Poland. So it's a majority, 2/3 up to 3/4 of white grapes. and I shall enumerate them. You'll be surprised at how much Riesling on the second place and how much Chardonnay in the third place there is. From hybrid grapes, I would say white hybrid grapes, it would be Solaris, the king, the main grape of Polish winemaking. Then Johanniter would follow, Hibernal, Muscaris, one of my favorite, which is a cross between Solaris and Gelber Muscatella.
Yeah.
So there's a huge variety in what you find in different voivodeships. Małopolska, the Lesser Poland. Oh, hello, Bartek. Hi. Małopolska, the Lesser Poland, is all about hybrid grapes. 55% here of the grapes grown are white, and they are mostly Solaris, Seyval Blanc, and Johanniter and Hibernal. While Lubuskie, near Zielona Góra, the former Grünbach area of Germany, is more concentrated on Riesling and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So the landscape is beautiful. You look at what is grown, and if you see more Vitis vinifera, then you can expect a milder climate. This is how it works in Poland.
Okay. That makes sense. Do you need the map still?
No. It's just for the sake of showing how much whites grow in each of the voivodeships.
So if then we go and look at the wine tourism, how has that developed in the last few years in Poland? Because now, I guess you have a lot of foreign people, international people that ask for your services, but I guess also people in Poland are interested in doing wine tours for different reasons.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a branch yet. As I said, wine tourism in Poland is in its nascent phase. It's getting born. There's looking at the market of companies who organize wine tours. It's mainly me, the Velo Wino, and Eat Polska by Michał Sobieszuk, and a few more really tiny enterprises who focus on vineyards in their tourism offer. So it's a very young, and still anything can happen. I can see interventions from larger entities, from larger travel agencies into that. That's possible as well. Or development of smaller agencies. We don't know what will happen yet, but much of Polish wine tourism is done individually. People discover vineyards via internet and decide to go on a bike tour or on a bus tour to a vineyard. And here I must mention, talking about bikes and vines and wine.
We'll come to that later on, I think, because I also have no, just to not do it in 2 different times. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add that you think anybody should know about the Polish wine world and wine tourism world?
I guess if you look for that's my advice. If you're looking for a nice wine tour in Poland, go to one of the main cities in the south of Poland, Wrocław or Krakow. Find a wine guide. Find someone who knows bits and pieces about Polish wine and can translate from Polish to English, and then go on a discovery of 2 or 3 vineyards just outside the city gates. This is the best way to discover Polish winemaking without too much effort of traveling. Or just contact me at Velo Wino. I can organize anything for you.
That seems like the most direct way of doing it.
This is the easiest way. Find a wine guide and let someone guide you across the landscape of Polish winemaking. That's definitely what I would suggest. Otherwise, if you're good at translating websites via Google Translate, you can translate the winery websites and learn from there. That's also possible.
True. So should we go over and talk a bit about Tuscany to do the both sides?
Yes, let's keep it balanced. Tuscany. So if I think about Tuscany, it's been like a dream for all of the middle class born Polish wine enthusiasts. So we think Tuscany, we think beautiful cypress landscapes, we think blue skies and walls of nice brick and just unimaginable beauty of Florence. But I want to ask you a little bit about this unknown Tuscany, about what grows there and what wines you drink. Tell us about your engagement in grapevine and grapevine adventures.
Okay, so I just wanted to say hello to Adam from Woodinville in Washington. So it's very nice that you're listening in. Feel free to ask questions anytime you want. So yeah, Tuscany. I mean, of course, Florence and Siena are the most well-known cities in Tuscany, but there is actually a whole wide world outside, and also there's a whole wine world outside of Chianti and Chianti Classico. Even if Chianti Classico will always be a bit of the center, together with Brunello di Montalcino, but Montalcino is much further away if you come to visit Florence or
yes, but there are certainly wines which you would find in any Polish wine shop or a wine bar.
Yeah. But then if we go outside, I mean, lately the Rufina area, which is just 15 minutes by car outside of Florence, which is part of the Chianti, but they're also an own consortium, like sub-consortium to the main Chianti DOCG consortium. And it's an area with, they're trying to kind of reprofile themselves and also to kind of show that they're an area that is actually very close. If you come to Florence for a few days, it's very quick to visit a winery or two in the Rufina area. And of course, it's a lot of Sangiovese. It's still a Chianti wine, but it's a Sangiovese on a bit higher altitude because it goes from around 200 meters to 400 or 500 meters of altitude, the vineyards. And you have like very historical wineries like Tenuta Bossi from the Gondi family. So the Marchesi di Gondi, they also actually are the owners. They're one of the oldest families in Florence. They were mentioned in the Divina Commedia and also before, I think. Fantastic. And they have a kind of lineage that goes back to the early Middle Ages, like with
you've touched on what Tuscan specificity is about. Ages-long tradition, and in Poland we are 20 years into winemaking, and you are thousands of years into that.
And I think they're even, related to people, to some important people in the age of Frederick the Great in the early Middle Ages. So I mean, just to be able to say that is quite impressive. So they're a very nice family, but they own like the palace just in front of Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, which is an amazing palace. They basically have like a whole, I think the upper floors where they used to live, you can rent them. You have to have a lot of money, I guess, to rent the whole floor with a butler. But I think for people like for Americans who are not afraid of spending, it's probably a very cool experience.
I bet the experience between Tuscany and Poland differs very much. In Tuscany, you get a beautiful old masseria where you actually spend the time in a beautiful villa and go out to the vineyards. In Poland, you rather have to focus on traditional hotels or some agriturismo style of vineyards and go to separate vineyards spot by spot, and they're quite a distance, and there's no sea of vines covering the hills.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we then go further, I mean, you also have winemaking in the northern part of Tuscany, which is the Mugello, where they make a lot of Pinot Noir. Then you have, of course, you have Bolgheri, but if you go a bit further south of Bolgheri, you have the Suvereto and Val di Cornia region, which they also produce a lot of French grapes because they were brought also there I think in the 18th or 19th century. When Napoleon was early 19th century, probably when Napoleon was dominating a bit in Italy. But what is really nice with Suvereto is that it's a lot of less pretentious wineries, a lot of small family farms and wineries. Bolgheri is a bit different, I think. They have both family farms and then the more kind of marketing splashed wineries with very expensive wines.
So what I know, you generally try to single out these middle-sized to very small wineries for your content strategist agency and for your.
Because I think they deserve a lot of attention. I think I mean, I don't have anything against the larger wineries because they need to be there and they also have more power to push through changes and stuff. But I think it's also, you can't just have really, really large, more industrial or commercial wineries and the big commercial or mid-sized, but larger than mid-sized wineries. Because you also need a smaller and mid-sized wineries because those are also like, they're the true farmers, so to say, often. And I think there's also a lot of great wines to discover there, because we had this discussion. I think there was a post on LinkedIn the other day about what is good wine. If good wine means that it's expensive wine, expensive, the price, the higher the price, the better the wine, which I think is not so intelligent way of talking about wine, because of course you find the Sassicaia or the others in Bolgheri that have very high prices, or similar in other regions. And there's nothing wrong about those wines, but it's a specific type of wine. I think often they were also born in a period with a different kind of winemaking, and then they developed to this kind of more international style, they call it in Italy, when it's a lot of oak, a lot of construction in the wine. Which is not always the case, but it can be. But it doesn't mean that they're better just because they have more money to spend on marketing. I think there's a lot of.
In Poland, you have garage wine producers, 1 hectare, 2 hectares, and a lot of great varieties on one plot. They experiment a lot. There's no law binding them. There's no appellation. Just a law that forbids to add sugar.
Yeah,
enough.
I mean, that was happening in the 70s and 80s with wineries like one of the wines of the Tignanello, for example, was a wine developed to revolutionize the wine sector, because you were not allowed to use French grapes, or you were not allowed, according to the denomination, to use only Sangiovese in your Chianti Classico wines. And the same was the Tenuta San Felice did also one of these first wines, and then came the Sassicaia and similar. So, I mean, in that period, they were revolutionizing wines because they tried to push the boundaries. But then today, I mean, they become very kind of convenient and late, wines that are more kind of part of the standard offer on a high level, expensive level. But there are so many wines, like you say, garage wine, which you can see also here with the more biodynamic or natural winemakers. They often have this kind of production, or with the smaller farmers. I mean, there are a lot of really, really good wines, and you also, I think, it also depends if you want to visit a smaller winery, a mid-sized winery, how you want to experience your winery visit, your wine tour, because often you might get the tour by the owner himself or herself, and you get a much more intimate contact with the winery and the winemaking. Which is not to say that if it's a larger winery, you don't get a great wine tour.
But you get a tour by someone who works for the
yeah. Okay, now a lot of winery, also the smaller ones, have people working for them because there's such a huge flow of tourism in Tuscany that it's difficult to manage. I just wanted to do the question from Adam. So he says he's curious about how many stops there are during a wine tour during a day. So I think this is a good question, because often when you get requests from like Americans or Canadians who like are planning their holiday in Italy, in Tuscany, and they look probably at the map of Tuscany, which looks very small compared to any state in the US, where you have very large distances. But the problem with Tuscany is that it's winding roads. So, there are a lot of curves and it is quite far. So if you go from Florence to, for example, to Pienza, which is in the lower Val d'Orcia in the south of Tuscany, or towards the south of Tuscany, that's like a 2 to 2.5 hour, I think more, at least 2.5 hour drive. So often you might have tourists who suggest that they would like to do like one winery in Chianti Classico, another one in Montalcino, and then the third one to end in Pienza. And I was like, that's impossible. You can't do that. It's like, oh no, but it looks so close. And also, like, perhaps if they would like to do 5 wineries in one day. And I was like, that's impossible because there is no producer in Tuscany or in Italy who let you come in and taste wine for 20 minutes and then go. I mean, even the shortest wine tasting, if you only want to taste the wines and chat a bit, is 1 hour. But normally you don't get away from there in 1 hour. It normally takes like 1.5 hours, because then you chat, you talk, and then the time just flies. So.
And it's absolutely a very similar situation in Poland. A visit to a vineyard must have a time of at least 1 hour to 2 hours. I would say if you stay in a vineyard where the owner is especially talkative, you would spend 3 hours there just chatting about various methods of production. So this makes a whole day of 3 vineyard visits at maximum. That's what I try to limit my tours to.
So I mean, in Tuscany, I would say it depends on which area. I would choose. So I mean, if you are close to Florence, you can do one winery in Chianti Classico, and then you can manage to go to the Chianti area, because they kind of border each other. Or you do 2 wineries in Chianti Classico and 1 in the Chianti area, but it's very hard to do like a winery in Chianti Classico, then go, for example, to Bolgheri, because Bolgheri is also around 2 hours away by car. So the distances, and normally like a driver would do 8 hours maximum for the cost of the day, and in those 8 hours you have to also cover the return to Florence. So you have to calculate around 6 hours of visit. So then you can do maximum three wineries to answer Adam's question. But then I mean, some people choose to do only 2 wineries in one day because they want to have a bit more relaxed a day. And then if you choose some area like in Rufina, you could probably manage to do 4 wineries, but it gets very stressful because people also want to have a nice lunch and to relax a bit. So I would say 3 is the maximum to have a nice day, because also if you do like 4 or 5, even if you would manage to do them, you get very tired, because I noticed like tourists they're very concentrated on the first winery. The second winery with the lunch is really cool, but at the third they're already tired and they don't listen very much, or
That's very much true.
But I think that's for any person. Like when you went to school, in the afternoon you were already tired, so you perhaps didn't listen that much.
This is how it works. In Poland, the vineyards are located in groups, I would say. So if you go to visit a group of vineyards, which are within a distance of 20 kilometers from each other, you can do it in a few hours without too much driving. But then to reach another group of vineyards, you would have to drive 2-3 hours to get there again.
Yeah. No, that's true. So if we talk about areas, I think there is also an up and coming, a very historical area. It's Valdarno di Sopra, which is between Florence and Arezzo. And I don't have a map here, but anyway, and it's a historical area because it's said that it's the area where the La Gioconda was painted. So the background in the La Gioconda is thought, one thinks that it's the Valdarno di Sopra area. And they're also one of the areas that were mentioned in the decree by Cosimo de' Medici in 1716 for the best areas for wine growing and production in Tuscany. But that has been an area that is a bit forgotten because I mean, you have wineries like Il Borro is in this area, which is owned by the Ferragamo family. But now there's a lot of smaller wineries that are popping up, and also kind of, historical farms that have returned to produce wine on a more serious level again. And then also, if you go further down in it's close to Valdorcia. It's Val di Chiana. It's called the area, and I'll write it down.
Where the beef stems from.
Yes. You also have wineries there. It's an area that is not very. It has also been kind of hidden for wineries and winemaking because everybody goes either to Montalcino or to Valdorcia, or they go to Chianti Classico or whatever, but they wouldn't go for wine in Val di Chiana that much. But it's coming again, and there is like I met with a producer that is a Belgian family who bought land in Val di Chiana. The present owner is very young, and his grandfather bought land in Val di Chiana in the 70s, I think, and he just made a bit of wine for his hobby. He was very into French grapes, so he planted French grapes there, and his grandson now, who was, I think, a professor in philosophy or something for a while in England, he decided he would go and take over the farm and produce wine. And the wines are very, because it's French grapes, but he makes them in a more slim and contemporary style, so it's more interesting wines. You also have another winery in close to Torontola, which is the Poggio del Moro. She's a Russian who has lived for many years here, and she's doing she's not biodynamic, but she's very into to beat the CO2 production, and they're very much focused on the soil. They're totally organic, kind of self-sufficient.
Yeah, I get the vibe. So talking about foreigners investing in Tuscany and foreigners investing in Poland, it's a curious thing that in Poland we have two very interesting French persons who produce wine. One is Guillaume Dubois in the west of Poland, in the Grünberg area, in Zielona Góra area, who organized the so-called Club of Five wineries, who focus very much on sparkling wines, the traditional method ones.
Okay.
And he believes in all of these interviews and columns in wine magazines that Poland is especially well suited for sparkling wines, the traditional method. We get the acidity, we get the diversity in the grapes. So that's a very curious thing. And another Frenchman who produces wine in the Łódź area is Jean-Thierry Smolis, whose wine has made it to the top of Polish sparkling wines of all time. So yeah, the French invest in Poland. but mostly the producers who go into winemaking in Poland are people who have day jobs, so they care for the vineyard after hours. So it's amazing how they manage to do both at the same time. But this is the situation in many vineyards in Poland. I know a story of someone who works for food industry. I know a story of someone who works in telecommunications for a big corporate environment. So, and they yet manage to produce wine at the same time. It's
no, there's a lot of those here too. I mean, the smaller farmers, a lot of them have day jobs too, because it's hard to make it go round. So we actually have Tatiana, who is the producer at Poggio del Moro, that I just talked about. So she says that she's organic and natural, and yeah, she does this kind of pet nut, both I think Trebbiano and Sangiovese, 2 different wines. She does a very good metodo classico, traditional method. So yeah, and then they do also classical Chianti wines. So, but what did I want to say? I think there is a lot. If we look at the tourism, I mean, there's still the larger tour operators who do wine tours. Buses with a lot of people, but not. I don't think it's as much as it used to be. I think a lot of people who comes here, they prefer the smaller tours. They're a bit more centered on.
I have tours for couples where I'm the wine guide who tells everything within a day, and I have tours for 50 people in a bus who come just for a short presentation at a vineyard, and they continue on their way, going straight to a city or an attraction somewhere in the countryside. So it's very varied. I would say there's no rule for how wine.
No, I mean, you also have that here, but I think before the pandemic, there was still a lot of these, kind of everyday tours that were very big for people who just wanted, a very more, I wouldn't say superficial, but a bit more or less for people who are less into wine. They just want to have a quick experience of a couple of wineries. Now I think there's several more. I mean, of course, you have the private, the one man or one person wine guides who do very personal tours. You have the kind of wine tour operators, or also smaller ones. There is like grape tours, owned by a couple of friends of mine. She's Danish and he's French, and they live here. And they do this kind of smaller buses with around everything from, I think, 3, 4 to 10, maximum 15 people, I think. And I've seen some of the wineries, because often I meet her at some of the wineries we know together. So she also do a very careful selection of the wineries she bring her people to. And I get this the feeling that there's always something, a very personal, intimate thought behind, how to present the wine experience in the best way to the tourist.
Yeah, you're very right. The wine guide can be sometimes the key to the experience, whether he's authentic, whether he shows passion, whether his storytelling is all right or just fantastic, and whether his sensory language is relevant to the experiences of the ones whom he guides. So using a relatable language in what you do when describing wine is very important. I guess so. It's authenticity, storytelling, and a good language that decides whether you have a good memory of a vineyard or not. But plus, of course, all the dintorni, all the surroundings.
I also think it's the winery itself. I mean, I believe a bit in the good vibes. So you always have these producers that give a great experience and a great visit, and also kind of.
Who gives the best anecdotes in Tuscany when you meet a producer?
That's difficult. In Tuscany, well, there is a friend of mine, Fabrizio, who he's actually very interesting. He has a winery in close to Montespertoli. But he also has like part of he has an agritourism. You can also stay there. You can rent rooms. He has a set of apartments that you can rent. He has the pool, and then he also has, you can go horseback riding. He has the manege, and so it's a very cool place. But it's not kind of a high flashy place. It's very kind of down to earth, and if he's there, he's very interesting because he always have something funny to say. And for anecdotes, I think who could that be? Let me think about that.
Never mind. If there's no one coming straight to your mind, I'm sure there's tens of them, because that's why.
Yeah, now I can't think about the best one, but I know that there's a lot of them that
I just wanted to note that one of our Polish winemakers from Winnica Miłosz, from Miłosz Vineyard, has received a top prize in storytelling with his novel about the history of winemaking in the Zielona Góra region. So he's been recognized as a good writer. And when we visit him with a bus of tourists, he always keeps joking and keeps the atmosphere at a perfect level. So there are very good storytellers among Polish.
Yeah. No, I mean, I helped the winery before for almost, I think, 8 or 9 years. Fattoria di Montemaggio in Radda in Chianti. And during the time I worked with them, every year they developed the wine tour and wine visits more and more. So in the beginning they had these kind of big bus tours, but then they realized that was too much for them because they're a fairly small winery. The location is extremely beautiful because you have the hills and the forests of Radda. It's located in a very isolated place. But they become very good, and the owner, not the owner, she's also Russian, but the director of the winery, she's from Florence, agronomist, Ilaria Nicchini, and she's a great storyteller, and she's really good at keeping the attention of the visitors, the tourists. And she basically kind of take them on a tour from the vineyard to the gardens, the vegetable garden. Then she explains, everything they grow, and then she takes them also often to a part of the vineyard, and then they have the tasting at the end. And it's very, I mean, they make around 50,000 bottles a year, not more. And but they're very good, and they have kind of developed step by step, learning from their errors. And there are several of these. I mean, if you also go to Susanna Grassi, I Fabbri winery in Lamole, she's such a sweet person that you just feel, very welcome and at home. Yeah.
I bet. My favorite is Robert Gemba from Winnica Kresy, whom I visit very, very often. He's like a staple tour of Velo Wino. And we have struck a kind of cooperation between the wine guide, me, and the vineyard owner, Robert. So he gets the tour of the vineyard itself. He shows the grapes, he shows the leaves, teaches how to decipher which grape is which. And I then move into the tasting room where we have a little bit conversation about how to taste wine and what you notice and what notes you notice in this particular glass. So we've struck a kind of a perfect duo of a wine guide and a winemaker.
No, that sounds great.
This works everywhere in the world. It's not only Poland.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't do as many wine tours. I do them occasionally. I mean, for me, ideal would be like once or twice a month. But I mean, I do them when people ask me for something more private, and then where I do a selection of the wineries, very careful selection, where I know that often we will have the experience with the owner herself or himself.
tell me,
and
Katarina,
also there I kind of share the storytelling between the owner or the people working there and me. So I don't try to kind of monopolize the thing, but I just
sure. Tell me, Katarina, would you be able to create a set of 10 best vineyards for a visit, like a very subjective set of vineyards for a visit in Tuscany, and describe it in an article to publish somewhere on our blogs or anywhere?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
This would be a lot of, actually, I think, valuable content for our listeners to discover the subjective 10 of garage.
For sure, I can do that. Sounds cool. Yeah. So Veronica Bruno, I just wanted to say hello to her too. I forgot that before.
Hi, Veronica.
No, for sure, I can do that. No problem. I don't know. Should we talk about the biking, because I know that you're.
Oh yes, that's a very
about the biking. So I will just put up the. I'm not a. I mean, I don't know that much about biking. I know there's a lot of biking in Tuscany. It's you have also the Chianti Classico Eroica, the race where you can participate also as a private person, which is within the area of Chianti Classico. But I have a friend, Elizabeth Gonzalez, who is a Mexican who used to live here in Florence. Now she lives in London, and she has made this PDF about biking in Tuscany, because she's a great biker. She does this kind of really long biking. She used to go biking like half a day or so. And
yeah, fantastic. Will you share it somewhere on your website in Grapevine Adventures or anywhere?
Well, I will give you the link so you can download it from her. It seems the more honest thing to do. So she kind of divides the biking rides into short rides, medium rides, and long rides. So the long rides are 70 to 120 kilometers, and the short rides are like I think up to 50 kilometers. And she also divides areas and what you can see, how you can experience. Like you can go to Improneta, which is fairly close to Florence, and she described the route you can do. You can go also, a short ride is to San Casciano, which is also where the Bargello of the Antinori have there's this kind of architectural super cool winery.
One hidden in the ground, right? Is it this?
Yeah, it goes kind of downwards, so it's like And then she describes also what you can do when you take a break. So if you go to for example, you go a bit further than Improneta, she describes some of the sites you can see, like the Luiano. You can go to Fiesole Olmo and Monte Morello, which is more north of Florence.
You definitely should make a list of this somewhere, and or just link to this file.
I'll ask her to do that together with me. So, I mean, biking is definitely a thing. If you like to ride a bike and you're a bit of an amateur biker, you also have the owner of Castello di Verrazzano, which is a friend of mine. He also has this group of Elizabeth is here, so she can tell you more. You can connect with her, and she can tell you more about biking in Tuscany, because I know when she still lived here, she was very kind of. I was very impressed, because I with this distances she biked in one day. But also Luigi, the owner of Castello di Verrazzano, is also a big biker, and he has this kind of amateur biking group, and he also posts a lot on his personal profile about biking and so I mean it's a big thing in Tuscany, because there's a lot of these winding roads, a bit dangerous, but to go biking on. And
I think that of course somewhere in the Polish mind there lurks a stereotype that when you go on a Tuscan road, you will meet groups of cyclists in these slim
yes
and so on.
There's a lot of them. I mean, it's also a bit dangerous because they often come in these big groups, and they go very fast. But of course, it's a great way to experience like these kind of gravel roads. You also have those kind of places, and I collaborate with a Canadian premium wine club that launched last year, which is a new way of this thing of not only focusing on the product, the wine, but also the experiences and the storytelling. So the CEO there, he came here last year, so I helped him to organize his Vinitaly. Also dreamt about touring a couple of regions for 4 or 5 days on motorbike. So he went around, and he went to Tuscany to a contact there who is an enologist at a couple of wineries, a consultant enologist, and he also has a place of his own where he makes wine, one of the highest points in Radda. And then they went by motorbike among the vineyards and the gravel roads, and David, the CEO of the Barrel Hunter Club, he was totally, amazed by this experience to go on a motorbike through the vineyards and through the forests and really kind of feel the landscape around you. So I think that can also be a great way to do tourism by motorbike, I think. Because you can also go in this where you wouldn't go by car probably.
Yeah, sure. In Poland, the center for a biking experience and wine in the background would be Sandomierz. It's a quaint old town somewhere closer to the eastern border of Poland on the Wisła River, where you get a castle with a vineyard underneath, where you have the old town with small streets, and around a lot of hills covered with cherry, apple vineyards, all kinds of agriculture. Especially if you come in April or May when the trees are in full bloom, it's a perfect cycling experience. And you would also notice migratory birds like going on the route there. So it's good for nature as well. I would say biking in Sandomierz, that's the way to do it in Poland. Vineyards on the way, 3 stops a day, perfectly possible. If you are more into mountain cycling, if you like hills and downhill rides and uphill climbs, I would go to Małopolska, Lesser Poland, just east of Krakow, where there are a few towns worth a visit because of their wooden architecture, plus a few vineyards on hills. So it's very green there, and it's a good ethnographic experience. You kind of get to know Eastern Europe as it used to be, maybe developing quickly, and in 10 years, like the agriculture that's there might be completely modified. So time to visit. Pogórze Ciężkowickie, please do visit. Or otherwise Lower Silesia, where the mountains are quite steep. Perfect routes organized around wine and beer. There are local government who support biking and outdoor activities, and that's what they invest in signposting, in preparing little roads, bicycle paths. So it's developing, and I'm sure with the help of state funding, which is coming, wine routes and beer routes with breweries will be developing very quickly. And I think this is a serious part of what I'll be doing at Velo Wino very soon for my clients. I have a nice cooperation with a company who provides electric bikes.
We're thinking about that because, I mean, to bike in Tuscany, it's a lot of hills up and down. I think there's only a few places.
Is an e-bike.
I mean, you have to be, not that you have to be a professional biker, but you have to be quite used to go by bike to manage. I mean, even if you only do 20 kilometers, it's still a lot of work. I mean,
it can be 20 kilometers with a 500 meters up and down.
Yeah.
Or a kilometer up and down. So yeah. I know Tuscany is like that. I visited once in 2000.
But I mean, it's a great experience, and I think like the Chianti Cluster Consortium has actually incorporated the biking feature in their kind of identity by being partners in organizing the Eroica race, which I think is in the autumn, but also kind of they promote biking in general. So I just want to say hello to Christopher Warty, UK. Christina is here, a friend of mine from Veneto. And Christopher Warty says would love to explore wines in Poland, that he has only tasted a few examples. I haven't actually tasted any wines from Poland, so I still have to do that.
It's very, very already a lot that you managed to get hold of these wines abroad, because 99% of Polish wine produce is consumed here, not abroad. We don't export wine. I guess Wieliczka Wieliczka has made an attempt at selling some wine in Paris, in London, possibly somewhere in Alsace as well. But not many wineries do exports. Vinica Turnau, the largest producer, probably does. In Berlin wine bars, you can get some of their wines. But to taste Polish wines, do come to Poland, engage in a wine tour of Krakow or Wrocław or Zielona Góra, and this way it's a good way to taste Polish wine. And of course, as Aga says, there's a feast of Polish wine in London coming very soon.
Okay. Hello, Aga, and that's cool. Yeah, Christopher is near London. I remember that. Here's another one. Bartolome says you have to visit Poland to try some. Yeah, I mean, I have to go to Poland too. I mean, from my town in Sweden, Ystad, which is on the most southern coast. It's the most southern town of Sweden. We have the ferry to Swinoujscie, I think, in northern Poland. So we used to do this kind of day tours in the past to Poland, but that was northern Poland. Okay, now I think you disappeared, Tomasz.
I disappeared because I needed to focus my camera, refocus it, and back.
So let's move on. Perhaps we had some other points we wanted to briefly discuss. I think we have actually touched upon them. So, I mean, we wanted to talk about also like how you introduce clients to wine, what approach you have, but I think we talked about that. So I would just jump to, how do you see you already talked about the future of wine in Poland a bit, that you think it will become more and more vitis vinifera now? Do you see anything about the future of wine tourism in Poland?
I think it's either larger companies getting interested in it at all. So larger companies organizing tours in buses for 50 persons, going to better infrastructure with vineyards around Poland, or small companies like mine cropping up and covering some of the smaller vineyards and smaller routes and groups of 15 to 20 maximum. So the future is bright as the climate changes and as wine is getting more popular in Poland. We must have it in our mind that there's no more than 1 million or 1.5 million wine consumers in Poland. If you look at the structure of how alcohol is consumed in Poland, you will see 70% of beer, 20% of spirits, and only 10% of wine. So it's not a large market yet, but there's space for development. We can still arrive at a level of Italy or France one day.
I wanted to ask that before, but then I forgot. There's a winery near to Swinoujscie. Thank you, Bartolome. I will have to try that one. And then Aria says best Polish vineyards in Okay.
Yes, Mr. Bacentevich has a good expertise. That's right, Aga, very much so. And he produces an excellent Früh Burgunder, very early, harvested very early this year, somewhere around August. So imagine a grape like Pinot Noir, Früh Burgunder, harvested in August in Poland. This shows a lot about the climate that we have. Gives a notion. And Mr. Bacentevich perfectly vinifies his wine. So this would be my recommendation, definitely, to go to the Wisła Valley and try his wines. He also grows Blaufränkisch.
I love Blaufränkisch.
Which is unusually unpopular in Poland, and I think there's space for the development of this grape somewhere on Polish slopes. But definitely Mr. Bacentevich, Mr. Fedorowicz of Winica Miłosz, Mr. Płochocki of Winica Płochockich, plenty of spots here and there to visit, to talk about wine, and to taste with no shame experience.
Okay, at least the biggest one.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so do you have anything else you want to add about the future of the Polish wine business, or should we go and talk about more kind of what wines we prefer and what your favorite wines in Poland?
Say that Polish wine will get more popular in the world because of the media and the traction that it gains from talking online. So more and more tourists will come to Wrocław and Krakow and discover, oh, why not a day out somewhere in the surroundings of the city and let's visit a vineyard. This is one of the ways of getting Polish wine to the consciousness of people abroad. It's going to develop, I'm sure.
No, I think so too. I mean, I see the same in Sweden. It's moving forward step by step, and there's a lot of more wine producers popping up and trying to do some good things, some great things. So which one is your favorite winery? You talked about the sparkling wine before, but which wine is your favorite in Poland?
I need to mention Robert Ziemba again because he's my close friend, and I need to mention his wines to the wide public. Robert Ziemba in Winnica Kresy, just outside of Krakow, near the Ojców National Park. And he produces excellent orange wines, long maceration on the skins, up to 6 months, based on Solaris or Johanniter or Hibernal. Good wines, good labeling. If you look at his labels, you'll find old photos from the 60s of the 19th century, and that's very interesting to also to touch as a bottle of wine, and not only to drink. Otherwise, I would think of vineyards like Winica Płochockich, who year by year produce a lot of characteristic types of wines, going very much into Kwevry aged orange wines, into a thing like a Solera system of sherry, where they mix wines from every year into one. They're very inventive there, and their wines are at the best Polish level you can think of. Winica Moderna from Lower Silesia or Winice Wzgórz Trzebnickich, definitely worth a try. Tart Rieslings, good Pinot Noirs, and a good example of Vitis vinifera in Poland. Winica Miłosz, who the writer I mentioned in our conversation, he produces a very popular line of wines called the Pandemic Orange, Pandemic White, because he invented the brand during the COVID times. And you would love his labeling with a doctor of the Middle Ages and with his long beak.
Oh, okay.
It's just a perfect product. It's good marketing linked with good wine making. So Winica Miłosz and Mr. Fedorowicz of near Zielona Góra, definitely worth a try. And there's plenty of little small vineyards in the Subcarpathian region who just struggle to get known, but they're excellent when it comes to hospitality. So just call me and I'll tell you everything.
Sounds like a great idea. She said something else. Okay. Best marketing and well funded. Okay. No, I mean, I think the same in Tuscany. There's so many to choose from, so it's often difficult. But I mean, if we go to Rufina, you have the Fattoria di Lavacchio, which is more. They do also more towards natural style, or at least kind of. I think they're almost biodynamic. And they also do the more kind of traditional line of Chianti wines, and then they do this kind of more fun pet nat and similar style. More
talking
natural.
About biodynamism, I'm very curious, how much is this popular in Tuscany, biodynamic vineyards? How many of them?
They're not that many. I don't really know the percentage for sure, but I mean, there are several, but it's not that popular. I mean, there's still... I mean, there are those who believe. I mean, for example, Avignonesi in Montepulciano, which is a fairly large winery, they were bought about, I think, 20 years ago by this Belgian woman, very wealthy from, I think she has some company or had some company in Belgium or internationally. And she decided when she bought it, so Avignonesi is a very historical winery in Montepulciano. They make Nobile di Montepulciano. She decided that she wanted to go biodynamic. I think they have more than 50 hectares. They're fairly large. So she contacted, like, Adriano Zago is one of the most well-known enologists here, and agronomists who work as a consultant for how to transition to biodynamic. So he worked with the Avignonesi, and they were one of the first larger winery that turned the whole production into biodynamic. Also to show that it's possible also for larger wineries, not only smaller wineries, because I think earlier on everybody believed that you had to be a small farmer to manage to do biodynamic. Now I think today perhaps it's more that you also see people or farmers who tend to do the regenerative because it's without the more mystical side, no? Because with biodynamic you have this mystical side also of the Steiner philosophy, and it doesn't appeal to everyone. But there are several wineries, I mean, that I can think of that are biodynamic. And also all over Italy, it's quite a few. It becomes more and more. Like there's a guy in Umbria also who has been biodynamic for a long time. I mean, he's not totally certified because he doesn't believe in the certification, but he does also he also uses horses in the vineyard and geese and then these kind of things. So it's coming more and more.
Book a tour for me. Book a biodynamic tour of Tuscany for me.
No, for sure. That would be really cool.
Vinica Wieliczka in Poland. It's the only original biodynamic vineyard of Poland. There's another one in the Wisła Valley, but they only turned to biodynamic after a few years. But Vinica Wieliczka is a place of unique good wines of Riesling, of Chardonnay, and Vitis vinifera like Merlot growing this far north. So in a slope of 400 meters above the sea level. So altogether, impossible things happen on this little slope in Wieliczka near the salt mine.
Yeah. So I mean, I think what I see is the most tendency trend is to be, of course, to be organic, and then to use kind of features of the biodynamic. So you use certain parts of the biodynamic, but you don't go completely certified biodynamic. I mean, some do, but most people don't. They use certain parts of the biodynamic system.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a supermarket where you choose from. I
Yeah,
bet Mr.
exactly.
Piotr, the owner of Vinica Velička, would oppose this way, but yes, it's possible
Yes.
as a supermarket of techniques.
Yeah. No, that's true. So, but then I mean, in Rufina, if you want to go for a more classical winery, you can go for Selvapiana is like one of the most well known, I think, or you can go with the Tenuta Bossi of the Marchesi Gondi. They're not, I don't know if they're entirely organic, but almost, and but they do very kind of nice Chianti Rufina wines. If you go to Chianti Classico, I mean, I already talked about Susanna Grazia di Fabri in Lamole. So she kind of has her visiting point is at the Castle of Lamole, which is more like a old medieval fortress, a small fortress.
Unrepeatable, nowhere else in the world, just Tuscany, medieval fortress and
Yeah.
winemaking. Good
And
heavens, I need to change Poland into a more historical place.
and her wines are very kind of contemporary because they're very Sangiovese, but it's a Sangiovese that is very drinkable, very vertical, very clean wines. Then you have like if you go to the Gaiola area, I think it's the Gaiola. No, it's the Castellina. You have like the Bibbiano, which is also very classical winery. You have in Greve, you have the Villa Calcinaia, which is of the Conti Capponi.
Okay.
In Montefiorale, which is
like
one of
10
the
of them, 10, yeah, but it's quite a lot.
and if you go to Montefiorale, which is just next to Greve in Chianti, which is one of the smallest. Now, when Chianti Cluster has divided they've done this zoning system, so they divided into 11 villages in the French way. You also have Montefiorale, which is one of the smallest. It's a small hilltop hamlet just outside Greve. And one of the wineries I collaborate with there is Montefiorale Winery, which has the same name as the village, the hamlet Montefiorale, because it used to be the church wine was produced at these small wineries. But then the family, the Sieni family, bought it they started to rent it in the 60s, and then they bought it in the 90s. And
You've just made me think of one thing. You've just made me think of one thing. The amount of knowledge available to winemakers, to wineries in Tuscany and in Poland, it's like this high and this high.
Well, I mean, they have a long tradition. I think this is also. I read this article when I was trying to finish the article that we will write together our articles, which I will finish now soon. This idea, that if you have the New World, I mean, not to say that they have less, importance or history, but their history is a bit shorter now. It's if you look at wine in the U.S., if you go back in history, it's much less years, much less centuries. If you go back and look at wine in Europe, and especially in Southern Europe and in Italy, and in Tuscany especially, I mean, winemaking goes, for Chianti Classico, it goes back to the early Middle Ages. If you look at winemaking, it goes back to at least the Etruscans, the Romans.
Sure.
You also have writings by.
I thought of even current knowledge of what universities offer if you want to go on an enology course, if you want to learn something about wine in an academic environment. In Poland, it's still a very limited market for that.
Well, probably because the market for wine or the winemaking world is still very small, so it might be coming in the future, I think. I guess so. I mean, I think in that sense it's a bit different. You look at wine in Italy and Spain, I think, and France has been part of the daily, reality for so long that it's more than just a beverage. It's something that is part of. It's linked to the history and the culture.
I'm very glad to be the one who presents wine as a wine guide, because you can always give this background and talk a little bit about history, mention the monks, mention the burghers, and how this all worked politically. So wine plus politics, a fascinating topic to talk about when on the wine tour. I bet you do that too in Tuscany. It was all about politics. Siena and Florence fighting and Pisa. It's a wonderful.
We always tell with a friend of mine. We always used to tell the story of the Black Rooster. No, that there is this legend that the borders between Florence and Siena in the Middle Ages was defined by these two knights who started riding in the morning, and they choose each one rooster. So the Siena chose a white rooster that they fed very well, so he was very fat and he didn't wake up in the morning. While the Florentines, who are also kind of mentally very cheap and very frugal, both with money and with I mean that's their kind of, that they're known for being. So they kind of starved their black rooster, and the rooster started kind of crowing very, very before dawn. Like, so the Florentine knight, he woke up very early, started riding, and he arrived to where Fonterrutoli is today, which is just outside, like very close to Siena. It's a legend, so there's not much truth to it, but it's like a story we tell. And with my friend, she would then do the crowing of the roosters while I would talk about the story. So people laughed a lot when they were listening to us. And I think it's a nice way to
beautiful stories like that. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, by the way. I'll remember this for the purpose of someone asking me about Italian wine and Polish wine, and I'll weave it into my narrative.
But also because the Lega del Chianti in the, I think it was, I don't know if it was, well, in the early Middle Ages, they had this, that they defined their areas that they were controlling for military purposes, and they chose the emblem, which was the black rooster, which is still today used by the Chianti Classical Consortium. So it's been kind of a symbol or an emblem that goes back to the Middle Ages. So it's all about history. I mean, of course, the younger generations that Priscilla and others talk about a lot, how to sell to them, but I think it's still valid to have a mix, to have a mix of history, tradition, and an innovative way to explain wine. I think, in my opinion, I think it's more to try and be more.
But then people like Priscilla, they focus on, let's say, the volatile part of wine experience rather than seeing what's there, like touching the walls and being in a country of 1,000 years of tradition. Them in Australia, not necessarily are able to witness what happens in wine tourism in a European country.
No, I completely agree. I think there it's actually the contrast between new and old world. I think there it shows very well, because I think if you're like in Australia, New Zealand, US perhaps still, I mean, US is becoming more and more a wine country, but I still think that it's different, because you look upon wine differently, and probably the people also buy wine with a different parameter.
Yeah, it's simply true. We have the biggest boost to our wine tourism, the history that's behind us. I would never leave it away, like apart from my narrative. Never, 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 never.
Yeah. So yeah, I think also, like, I don't think the younger generations only want very easy. I mean, I think it's more that perhaps you have to redesign the language of wine, how you describe wines, because I think people today don't want to hear like very tech sheet things about wine. But I think to have the history and the background is still important to understand, and it can be fun also because if you're like driving through, I don't know, Montalcino or Valdorcia, and you tell the stories of the local area. I think it can be very much fun too.
Just find a good historian, and the historian tells you the story. Depends whom you read, depends whom you are with, and the history can offer amazing insights, really.
Yeah, no, that's
so let's say, let's be proud of this. You can be proud of your history there in Tuscany, while me in Poland, just the beginning of it.
Well, I mean, Poland has a lot of history too. It's more linked to other things like the 30-year war in the in the 17th century, or well, they have a lot of links with Sweden in Poland. I mean, Aga here gives a lot of good information. So thank you very much. I will read it more carefully later on. And so, yeah, I don't know if anybody has any more questions. Do you have anything to add? I see that we've been going on for 1 hour and 20 minutes because there's so much to talk about. So it's difficult to put an end to this live stream. We could also do a second part live stream where we we talk about different things in wine tourism.
Oh yes, I was talking about Winnice Kazimierskie Wzgórza. Absolutely, very good infrastructure, friendly, receiving. It is a place worth a visit, and you can link it in your tour with Kamil Barczentewicz, whom we talked about earlier, because it's not far from each other, and it's the town of Kazimierz, just some 100 kilometers south from Warsaw, is a beautiful place to visit. So it's like a ready-made tour for anyone who's interested in Polish wine. Two wineries, plus a quaint old town, plus some bike riding or even water jet scooters on Wisła rivers, whatever you wish.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of good information coming today. So I will just link your website in the comments for anybody who wants to have a look, and I will also link my website.
This is not the website. This is the Velo Wino of Germany, which actually
oh my god
is a
sorry, I will take it away.
Competition somewhere in Weinheim in Germany. So we share the name. My website is www.velovino.pl.
Okay. Velo Wino PL. Okay, here it is.
Thanks everyone for listening. It's been a great pleasure to talk. I could sit here and talk for 2 or 3 hours more, like going winery after winery and region after region. There's plenty to talk about, but well, we'll limit it to 1 hour.
Yeah, we're already towards 1.5 hours, but yeah, there's so much to talk about. So thank you, Jeff. Also, you're still following us. Yeah, let's hope you can come to Poland or to Tuscany very soon. And if you want to look us up or sign up for our newsletters, you have both now also the right website for Tomasz and also my Grapevine Adventures. And we will soon be publishing. I will publish Tomasz' article about Poland, and he will publish mine about Tuscany on his website. It's my fault we're a bit late because I'm a bit slow in this period. So
no, just keep following us.
Takes me a bit longer time to do things, but it's been a great experience to have this live stream again.
Thank you, Katarina. Thanks for the invitation.
And I hope to do it again soon, and we will definitely try to do something together, perhaps either in Tuscany or in Poland. So thank you, everyone. I'm Katarina. This is Tomasz, and thank you for having joined us today. And talk to you soon.
Good luck with your wine tour.
Yes, on a wine tour.
Well.